Hi viewers, and welcome to another iRacing video. This time we're in Canada, in Circuit Gilles Villeneuve, and we're back in the Ferrari GT3 again. So, a bit like last time, I've still not had a lot of practice. I'm going to kind of wing this as I go along. I think I've qualified about 6th. It's quite a strong field. Some of the guys ahead of me are 5 and 4.5k iRacing, and I even think one of them is 6.3. That said, I just don't feel that I'm really connecting up on this track at the moment. I'm just a bit sloppy. So here we go. Straight away, trying to stay in a kind of stable line, not move around too much, just in case somebody moves around and hits me at the start. And the key thing with a lot of iRacing races, just to get through the first couple of corners cleanly. Once you're through that, you generally can then do your own race. So here we go. We're away, 6th position. It's about a 15-minute race, and we're already getting a bit sideways. So the tyres are quite cold, and I'm pushing obviously quite hard. And you can see there, I had a complete sideways moment. And again, we've got it sideways again. So I need to ultimately calm down a bit, I think. The guys ahead of me are probably a lot quicker than me anyway, so I should really let them go. But at the same time, you kind of want to stick with people as much as you can. At the moment, we've kind of gapped the guys behind us almost to a second, so we're not under any serious pressure. So my current focus, just as I just push on a bit too wide, just to try to close up the gap to the guys ahead. If I can get in the tow, then hopefully I can sort of keep with them, just using the slipstream to keep on their pace. So I've been struggling through this section quite a lot, as you saw there. I didn't quite get it right. I find when you hit the curbs, it sends, at least my force feedback will, but it just sends the car a bit haywire. So I'm not 100% sure what the good line is in that. Last time I raced this was once again probably about 6 months ago. And I'm sure when I used to race it, I knew all the braking points, knew what brake bias to use where. At the moment, it's just a bit haywire. It's quite a difficult track, really. It's very narrow, very kind of flowing, but if you mess up one section, that can really knock onto another. And the key thing is that the walls are so close to the track that you make one little mistake and you'll basically end up in the wall. So this is another corner that I've, to be honest, really struggled with. I find that the car doesn't want to rotate into the corner. And just generally, the car seems to be a quite understeery car with the baseline setup that we have in the Ferrari GT3 Fixed Series. I honestly think I must have just got used to it in the past when I used to race this car a lot, because it really does feel very understeery. Might be on this track obviously more prominent because the track penalises if you understeer, because you'll just basically steer straight into a wall. So through the chicane again, past the Wall of Champions, didn't hit it, which is always good. My current focus is just to try to catch up the cars ahead if I can. One thing that I find is with this corner especially, it's really important to sort of take that quite shallow and hug the inside corner to get a good time. I don't know if that's just because the car's quite understeery, but if you try to get on the power too early, you'll essentially push out wide. The thing I find with this car is it's generally brake, turn in on the brakes, but not like that. That was a little bit too much of a trail brake. But yeah, generally turn in on the brakes so the car rotates in, get it pointing in the direction you want to go, and then start adding the power in. If you get on the power too quickly, the car will just push out wide. It won't actually turn around the corner. So a good example of that is this corner down here. It's a hairpin, you get on the brakes, bit of brake onto the apex and then on the power. And even then, still understeering towards the wall quite scarily. But you could actually see I was braking even past the apex almost. You really got to use the brakes in this car to try to turn the front end of the car into the corner. Once again, this is another corner where you're using the trail braking just to get it to rotate into the chicane, and then from there you obviously can get on the power again and go out the other side. This corner I'm finding it's a bit hit and miss whether I hit it or not, and this one looks like I've made a bit of a mess of it. The whole track generally, it's kind of slow in fast out. It really penalises if you kind of carry too much speed into a section, and actually if you can brake a bit earlier, often you'll get a better line into the corner and you'll end up actually getting out of it a bit better. So the guys ahead, 1.72 seconds ahead. They're not disappearing, but equally I'm not exactly that close. However, just seeing ahead there, those two are starting to have a bit of a battle. So that's always a good sign for me, because it basically means that hopefully they might start to trip over each other. So we're down to 1.33 with them ahead. So we've definitely gained on them. And the guys behind us are 2.23, so quite far behind. So that was a bit scrappy through there. Ultimately, it sort of over-braked into it. It kind of understeered a bit over the curb. Not ideal. Once again, hugging that inside line and then getting on the power, letting it push out wide. This section's particularly tricky. You kind of want to bring it in, but it's so easy to just go into that wall if you just get it slightly wrong. This is obviously another tricky section. The whole track's quite a tricky one, to be honest. It's quite a technical circuit. Through here, if you get on the power too early, the car will kick wide. Equally, you can lose loads of time if you don't get the car rotating in. Kind of missed the apex on that, but trying to save it by going over the rumble. So that corner, like, you really feel the understeer. You kind of feel like you just can't get on the power. The guys ahead of me have sort of pulled away again a bit, 1.7 seconds, so I've just got to try to keep focusing on what I'm doing, try to keep catching them and being consistent. Okay, so here we have caught him up. It's now down to about a second to the guy. So it's time to just see if we can put some pressure on him, catch him up at all. So 0.7 behind him. Ultimately trying to push as hard as possible now. I think these guys are generally quicker than me. he'll definitely be able to see me in his rearview mirror now, and it will probably be adding a bit of pressure on him as well, especially through this section. So we're down to 0.6 behind him. So we've really pushed now. We've got on his back. I don't know if he's struggling on tyres a bit, but this could be a real opportunity to capitalise on him. And he's pushed a little bit wide there. So now down to 0.5 behind him. I think my plan would be to try to get a good run out of this corner and ultimately try to get near him after the straight. And oh my god, the understeer, absolute incredible. The car just would not turn that corner. So he's now got away, and yeah, we kind of lost our opportunity there due to the car just not turning in. The front tyres just did not grip. And to be honest, for a second I thought I was going into the wall. I think now we can just focus on trying to catch him back up, but unfortunately, that was probably the main opportunity we were going to have. So we're at 1.2 behind him, so I'm constantly looking at that delta to him, trying to work out, okay, am I gaining on him or is he getting away from me? If you start gaining on him, that's a good sign that if you just push a little bit harder, you might just be able to catch him. At the moment we're about equal distance, although he's just started to pull away there because I kind of messed that up. Interestingly, the cars ahead of him are also quite close, so all three of them now are kind of within distance, and we may even get an opportunity if any of them start fighting and actually take each other out. Oof. Kind of pushed a bit too hard into that and ran a little bit wide.
The car behind is pitting.
Okay, so potential opportunity here. Me and the car ahead seem to have caught up the car in the position ahead, so I guess that's third. That definitely could make something happen here. Typically when two cars are fighting, they go a lot slower than when a car's just in clean air. So I'm hoping the car ahead just starts to pressure him. There's one thing I learned on that chicane just back there. On the exit, you can kind of basically run right over the grass almost. It doesn't penalise you for some reason. Okay, it seemed like a better exit out there. We're down to 1.3 behind them. I think you generally have to be about a second behind them to get properly in their draft. So we won't be getting too much for a tow down here, unfortunately.
Gap to Haynes behind is increasing. It's now 9.2 seconds.
The fact that we're keeping about 1.3, 1.4 behind, actually we're down to 1.2 now. So we're actually gaining. I was going to say it shows our pace is quite similar, but we've actually gained a bit, and it looks like we might have a back marker here. Could make things a bit more interesting. The guy ahead of us down to about a second in front, and we've just got to deal with this back marker now because I need to get past him without making a mistake. And slightly offline, but no, that was all right. So 1.1 behind.
The gap in front is now 1.1 seconds.
The understeer still in that corner. It's horrendous. So unfortunately, I just don't think we're going to have enough time in this race to really catch and do anything here. Down to 0.7.
Looks like the leader's binned it in turn 1.
So race over, 5th position. Not terrible considering the guys ahead were very, very good drivers. Really high I rating, and I decided let's just jump in for another race. Let's see how we do this time. So similar situation again. I think we've qualified 6th again, so it's just a case of seeing what we can do this time. And looks like I've just been caught completely napping.
Concentrate, be ready.
I just didn't think that the pace car had already gone that quickly, so basically we just kind of fallen straight behind the pack straight off the start, which isn't ideal. The good thing is obviously we haven't tangled with anybody, so in some ways them doing that actually makes it better because we're almost in single file immediately rather than all trying to pile into turn 1. And so my focus now is just I've got to try to get past this guy ideally. That pack probably is going to zoom off if I don't get past him. So it definitely feels that I'm quicker than this guy. I'm sort of on his bumper immediately, which is usually a sign. Obviously he must be similar pace to my quali pace because he was kind of positioned around me, but you'll sometimes find some people can do a perfect lap in qualifying, but when they get to the race, they sort of drop off the pace a bit. Okay, just turn in, try to get a good exit. And he's slightly pulled away from me there. So one thing I'm trying in this race, obviously the last race we had so much understeer. I've actually put my brake balance back to 50.4. I think I had it in at 51.8 in the last race, and obviously the default was 52.4. So we've kind of moved the brake bias backwards, and ultimately what that means is that when you're braking, you're able to rotate the car in a lot easier. If you have too much front brake bias, the car tends to have a tendency to lock up the front wheels and understeer a bit. When you put it backwards, you actually can get the car to rotate in a lot easier. There are some places where you don't want that though, so I've actually just knocked the brake balance back up to 51.4 for that section there, just because it's already hairy enough as it is. And similar to this, we saw it in the last race that the car kind of was sliding all over the place under braking, so it's better to just push it a bit more forward when the car's unstable and push it backwards when you need to get the car to turn in easier. So I'm all over the back of this guy. Looks like we've got a slower car ahead as well. I don't know if somebody's just got a penalty or they've made a mistake. Oh god. So I don't know why, but he sort of turned in, and on the apex it looked like he kind of braked. I guess he was probably trying to deal with understeer, but unfortunately that's just caused us to hit the back of him, which is less than ideal. So I'm doubly wanting to get past him now, but I'm equally keeping in mind that he might do something unusual, because that was definitely unusual. I think one of the things with iRacing is that you've got to trust the other drivers, and sort of ultimately you can only really race wheel to wheel and push really hard if you think they're going to do something normal. If they do anything weird, like that guy braking in the middle of the apex when you're right behind him and causing contact, and equally there he's sort of backing off in the middle where he should really be on the power, which makes my car more unsteady. So you can see my best lap was a 134.9 and our last lap was 135.9. So I think just there, I might have missed it, but I think the leader or somebody from the front had actually gone off at that chicane. So I know the thing's still saying I'm 6th, but I think we're up to 5th. It'll be interesting to see if that leader rejoins and starts to try to push back through the pack. Slightly too deep there on the brakes, which can be a bit of a problem, and ultimately actually it's let the guy that's right behind me really close the gap. He's currently 0.3 behind us, and if I'm not careful he's probably going to start trying to attack me, so I've got to keep that in mind, especially coming into his here. Oh god, I made a mess of that. That's what happens sometimes when you're feeling the pressure. You can kind of think, I need to do a good job here and actually make it worse. And he's going for a little run down the right hand side of me, but I've got to just take a shallow line to block him out. And then if I just turn in, he should have the door closed. So he's right on me now. I know that I'm faster than him, so I've just got to actually try not to let him get to my head, and just focus on what I'm doing and just get in consistent lap times. So I've pulled a half second or so away from him there, which gives me a bit of breathing space. As I say, it's amazing when you've got somebody right behind you, how that can just completely throw you off. And there's nothing quite like what I was just doing there in that chicane, where I got it completely sideways. So ultimately I want to try to pull away from this guy, try to chase down the guy in front. I definitely was quicker than the guy in front earlier. I might have slight damage from when we had contact, but I'm hoping it won't affect me too much, and it's just a case of just trying to push on now to catch him up. Okay, feel like we took a chunk out of him there. We're down to 1.1 ahead. Guy behind still 0.6 behind though, so we're still under some pressure. We can't really make a mistake. Just a case of just trying to close in on this guy ahead. So I'm still using 51.4 on the brake bias through here. Just getting it turned in, cutting the grass a little bit there, which it seems to let you do. It's a tricky one, this corner. I sometimes find second gear seems to work better, but that time I used first.
Okay, Paul, you're reeling this guy in. The gap's now 0.8.
Yeah, so I kind of made a bit of a mess of that, but we're still closing in on him, down 0.7 ahead. Got the brake bias at 50.4 and just trying to get it to turn in. It seemed to turn in a bit nicer. We should be close enough to get in his draft, so I'm hoping we'll get a little toe down the straight. You can see it's going 0.7, 0.68, 0.66. That's the effect of being in his draft down this straight. I still just feel like I'm not nailing that quite as I should be. It feels a little bit uneasy each time I go through, but we're still 0.6 behind him. The other cars ahead aren't that far away either, so the leader in the front pack really haven't broken away, which is a good sign that we're on good pace. That last lap was a 1:34.7, which I think is not too far off of what quali pole was. So we're right on him now, 0.3 ahead. Basically, I just want to force him into making a mistake, just pressure him as much as I can. The thing that I've got to keep in mind though is that he did do that weird thing with the braking in the middle of the apex. So even though I want to get close, I kind of still have my guard up. I don't really want to end up in an accident. Oh, I just sort of completely locked up the brakes there going into that. Unfortunately, sometimes when you're pushing too hard, you can actually make a mistake like that, and I've let him get away a bit. So
stay close. Wait for him to make a mistake.
I've just got to recoup and try to just close the gap again. Which, considering previously I was gaining on him quite quickly, and I've gained on him a huge amount there, actually almost caught me off guard, which made me make a bit of a mistake again. It seemed like I just gained so much time on him that I was going to hit him in the middle of the apex of that chicane, so I had to back out of that. Oof. Car sort of seemed to clip the curb weirdly there. I thought it was going to launch the car into the wall, but thankfully it didn't. Oof. Okay, right on him again now. So there's a real chance of an opportunity here. Oh, he actually hit the wall. I think he hit the wall there. So he's probably got a little bit of damage, although it was only a slight tap. But let's hope that he has a bit of a problem here. Like, he'll be feeling the pressure, and that's probably why he drove into the wall there. You can just see us all over him. Right, close it right up. Yeah, understeer again. He's just getting away because we're understeering so much out of that corner. In his draft, nice toe, and kind of very hard to commit to that line when you got that guy just right in front of you. Unfortunately, lost a little bit of time on him there again. I think I'm gaining on him quite a lot through this section. He's sort of pushing wide there, and it's really key to hug that inside line. Another place I seem to gain on him is through this section. Yeah, right on him. Find a lot of time through that section. It's very hard to even use full throttle because the car's so unsteady. So, in his draft again. Could probably take a lunge, but let's just stay behind him and see what he does. He'll be definitely feeling this pressure now. Okay, it's interesting. He's staying to the right. So, unfortunately, I can't really get past him. Although I did see on the inside front left of his car, he definitely has damage from where he hit that wall. But unfortunately, he sort of stayed to the right as if he was almost letting me pass, but then didn't. And again, he's moved over to the right, so it's almost like he's letting me pass, but I presume he isn't, so I'm not going to go for it, and he's not. So the guy's doing quite unusual things. He'd have been better off there just staying over to the left. It's very unlikely I'd have been able to get past him anyway. I guess if he has got damage, maybe he realises he's just not got the pace anymore. That last lap was a 1:36.6, so that's nearly 2 seconds slower than our fastest lap this race, and I presume that's the damage that's done that. So yeah, it would really help to try to get past him here. Oh God. Just when you're trying to push too hard, another mistake under the brakes there. And that's really let him get away. And in fact, I need to be careful again. The guys behind me have caught up again. It's now 0.5 behind. The guy ahead's gone off to 1.4. And I think the car behind the car that's following me is the leader that spun off right near the start of the race. So I've got to keep that in mind, because the leader's probably quicker than all of us, and it's probably coming through unless they have damage. So that guy seems to have just passed the car behind me, so I've got to be aware that I think this is the last lap, and that guy's probably going to be quick, so I might have to go quite defensive just to hold him off. At the same time, I am gaining again on the guy ahead, so even though I want to defend and hold the position, it would always be nice to gain another position as well. Braking a lot earlier that time just to make sure that I don't run wide, especially with this guy right behind me. He's now 0.3 behind. He's flashing his lights. He wants to get past me. So I'm going to actually go quite slow and tight round here just to make sure that he's got no opportunity to get past. And he's hit me. So interestingly there, obviously he hit me, so that's another 4x against my safety rating, which is never good. But he's actually disappeared, which suggests that he's just hit the 17 incident limit and actually got disqualified from the race. So from his perspective, that was a really dumb thing to do, because he could have finished in 6th and now he's going to finish last. So not only did he give me 4 incident points, but he's actually completely penalised himself as well. So here we go, another 5th. It's not the end of the world, because these guys were really good drivers. Once again, I think we got a 6k iRating, 5k and a 4k. But sometimes you win them, sometimes you get a 5th. So thanks again for joining. Hopefully you'll subscribe, and hopefully we'll have a race next week of something a bit more exciting. Thank you.